Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. Today, we got a special podcast coming at you. The fishing industry, the world of tournament circuits are changing rapidly, and we got a special release coming. It's happening, and there's no better person, no better way to learn this stuff, this forward facing sonar that you hear all about, than learning from Mr. Tom Wynn himself. Tom, how we doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me back.
You bet. Yes, Tom is was our first guest, and I think we're approaching episode 30 here. So he's back, but he's got some big news. We want to talk about that here shortly. But just recap, kind of, it's been a busy year. Tom's done really well in the National Walleye Tour. He's sitting in third place, I believe, for Angler Year in points, only 8 points out of first right now. And whenever this airs, Tom may be the champion. Tom may be in the process of becoming the champion at that point. But forward-facing sonar is clearly a huge part of your game. You're traveling with a team of guys, and I imagine helping them learn some things over it. And then as you did the smart thing and teaming up with these Chase and Corey and Kimos and these guys to learn some of these other traditional methods, just in case.
Yep.
Right. But it does make, I imagine, breaking water down a little bit easier for you. But kind of tell everybody, how do you go into it? What is your approach, with the forward facing sonar when you're coming to a new lake or planning for a tournament?
Well, I mean, I just, the first few years I did it by myself and went to these massive bodies of water, and I would just I wouldn't even look at a map of the lake or contours literally until the night before I start pre-fishing, because I would go there, I would check it out, and I would just pick an area that I thought would mimic what I like to fish back here at home. For just an example, last year at Sault Ste. Marie, giant body of water, big river system.
Yes.
You can go to Superior, you can go to Huron. So there, I just looked at the map, and there was two areas that I saw that was out of current. Okay, and they were pretty much smaller systems all on their own, and it gave me a smaller area to break down. So one of those, I can't remember the name of the lake, but there's a lake there.
Lake George.
Lake George. Lake George
Yep.
is kind of its own little system.
You're right by me one day fishing in there. So.
Okay. And I went in there and pre-fish. I found some walleyes there, and they were quality. They were decent size, but I just wasn't getting bit enough in there. So then I looked at the map again. The other place was like 50 some miles from launch, but it was in a bay, totally protected from current. Had these islands, rock piles, and stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna go down there, and I hate running that far, whatever. But I went down there, and the first little rock pile I came up, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. And so that's where I ended up. I took a top 10 in that tournament, but that's kind of what I do. I look at these places, Mississippi River, for example. I look for places again out of the current, and they were smaller areas, but that's what I did. And I just picked those areas of weeds and stuff apart. So that's how I do it with live scope, forward facing sonar. And this year I did decide to team up with Chase, Corey, and Tommy, because I thought, there was a piece I was missing. I'm using electronics solely to go and break these places down, but and people say not to fish history. It sounds like that's what I'm doing with these guys, but also they have all of that traditional fishing knowledge from where tournaments were won before, why these systems are the way they are. I learned so much from Springle this year on Lake Erie. It was unbelievable. I'd been to Erie before with my buddy Nate, and we caught fish, but we just went fishing. I wasn't looking at water temp. I wasn't looking at water color. And at the time, I didn't realize how many current systems was running through Lake Erie. Listening to Corey, I'm like, holy crap, this is something to it.
Water clarity is there.
Yeah. And so that's what I chased. I chased that particular watercolor. And then, the story. with the barge and lock 3 going down to pool 4. So without those guys too, I wouldn't have gotten a 30-minute head start in fishing in the spot. And so there's some advantages of that, and I'm learning a lot of things like that and to incorporate with what I know with electronics, and hope. And then also, I've always said it, if you're a good traditional angler and can start learning some of the stuff I know with electronics, you're going to be a lot better than I am. And Corey Springle showed out a little bit in this last tournament, and
yes, he did.
All he did was stand up in the front of the bow. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
It was awesome for me to see that. And talk about scary if he starts to
Yep.
So
it's just a matter of time. Everybody's starting to, some of you guys are at it earlier and better, and you brought it, in the bass world and brought that over. And Lord knows plenty of bass techniques are working in the walleye world. I don't think there was a day I didn't throw a Ned rig or a drop shot at the last tournament. Or a chatterbait on the Mississippi River.
Yep.
I mean, sorry, folks, these things work. They work as good or as well, not always, but sometimes, and just a different flavor is all it takes once in a while too. So, there's a little bit of that on the schedule next year where I imagine some of those things may come into play again. But that's a team of anglers, a group of guys that has got talk about just a massive wealth of knowledge to partner with. I mean, you couldn't have made a better move with a better group of guys that. But yeah, scary. Chase gets that dialed in. Corey gets that dialed in. Kimos has been working on that thing for a long time, being a big Garmin man, and I know he knows how to catch him on it. Yeah, you ain't kidding about getting scary. So it's fishing. It's just the way it is. We talk about memories or fishing these tournaments. And we do the same thing when I travel with Takasaki, been around forever, knows how these tournaments were won back in 1995. Dan Steer won it over here doing this. It's like, great, but won it over here doing this no longer applies at all anymore. I mean, period. That's maybe over there's a place I'll go look, but I'm not doing that because I don't have to. It's just, I keep telling people, and people that are listening, if you're in the tournament game, if you're not using it, you're not really competing at the highest level. Because there's a 10, 12 of you guys that can go in anywhere, anytime, any body of water, like you said, not even looking at a map, with a couple days of practice maybe, and get it figured out, more or less. Now, local knowledge helps a ton. A lot of experience, knowledge of just general fishing can help you break that body down, which you have, and most of these people have anyway that are at that level that understand transitional patterns and key areas to kind of go focus on. But there's also a lot of fish. I always tell people, I've never seen a walleye read the Walleye Insider magazine. So just because we think that's what they're supposed to be doing doesn't mean that's what they're doing, right? And they're finding that out with Ford. You're like out in the middle of wherever, and the bass guys will tell you that 80% of these bass they're catching now have never even been fished because they're out in the middle of the lake, suspended, throwing, minnows at them.
Yeah. Well, even before using live scope to catch walleyes, I only remember watching Bassmaster Live and these guys catching massive walleyes in places that us walleye anglers traditionally never looked. And one thing that sticks out in my mind, just like 3-4 years ago, one of the guys caught one, was it Lake Oahe? One of the Bassmaster Elites over trees. It was a 12-pounder, like 70 feet. It's like, so that all that's always stuck in my mind is like, we can see these bass guys catching these giants. They're never small. So I'm always like, that was in my head, like, well, why not go look in these untraditional places? So
and then they they were lacrosse a few years back, which NWT is going there next year, which isn't really known as a walleye fishery on that pool necessarily. Below it be pool 9, I think, which is a great fishery, but 8's a great bass fishery. But there's walleye. Those guys were there for their bass tournament and throwing chatterbaits, fishing, bass up in these weeds and kind of junk fishing and ripping out 6, 7, 8 pound walleyes. So they're a predator. They're going to go where the bait is, no matter how hot. I mean, I fished surprisingly super shallow most all summer long, and some 2 to 8 foot because it's got weeds. And it as a Minnesota guy, where there's weeds, there's walleyes.
Especially in the summer.
Especially in the summer. Especially right now when it's hot, it's full of bait, there's cover. I mean, lake traffic gets busy. The weeds are just the place to be. So
Yep.
that is, so if you didn't know that, people, it's not a secret. Go fish, find weeds, and you'll find walleye and pretty much
100%.
everything else.
A little bit about some high performance products that I use, and I'm pretty sure you're going to love it too. It's the Seaguar Smackdown braid. There's 3 things about this thin diameter braid that I just absolutely love. 1, it's tough as nails. 2, longest casting, smoothest braid I've ever used. The 8-strand braid, tubular form, just comes off those reels super smooth, long cast. It doesn't make a lot of noise. It's awesome. And 3, it's super sensitive. No matter what kind of lure or jig I'm throwing out there, I can tell. I've grass, weeds, rocks, sand bottom. I can feel it all right through there into my rod. The stuff is extremely sensitive. So Smackdown comes in 2 colors, high vis and stealth gray. Get yourself some of this stuff and you're gonna get yourself some more of these. Check them out at seaguar.com.
That's a good time to have a fluorocarbon leader on, by the way, because pike like to live in those weeds too.
Yep.
So Sakakawea was one of the last tournaments. You got there, you did the Dakota Walleye Classic, but more importantly, you spent a day out there doing wheelchairs and walleyes. What was that all like, and what was that about?
It was a great experience, and I honestly never even heard of it until I was on my way out there. I was driving out there, and I get a social media message from that tournament director of the DWC, who's also the head behind Wheelchairs and Walleyes. And he said, I know you're going to be in the area. It'd be great if you could stop by. It's a ranger sponsored event. We know you don't have a ranger, but even, you could come by. It'd be great. And so I was thinking, like, it's first thing I thought, I was like, well, I had planned I was going to fish this section of the lake.
Right.
But it didn't take me long to make up my mind. Like, I looked into it a little bit on their Facebook page and what they were doing. They were building that ramp. They built it in 48 hours. It's a super expensive project that they donated to Beulah Bay there, and they're trying to get it. They've got all the plans. They've got all the specs and stuff now that are all what do you want to call it? They're all approved by all the agencies that they can put them pretty much anywhere now. So that's nice. And the goal is to put them across the country in a lot of these popular fishing spots, so anybody can go fishing now. It doesn't matter if the Wheelchairs and Walleyes was focused on kids who are confined to wheelchairs, but that it can be anybody. It could be your grandparents who can't get out anymore, they have a hard time getting in boats. It's exactly what this is for. And for me to, what made me think, I'm going to go do this for this day is just thinking about, my grandma growing up. When I was growing up, she had polio when she was a kid. She was born with polio. All I remember is her having braces on her legs all throughout my life, all her life. She passed away probably 5 years ago or so, but, one of my favorite people in the world. But, I just started thinking, like, as I was driving, I'm like, what it would feel like if she could get into my boat. And she passed away before I even fished walleye tournaments or had a big boat, but I always started thinking about it, how cool that would be. And so, yeah, we went, my buddy Ryan Subart, who invited me to fish this. We never fished together before ever, but he was all about it too. He's like, let's go do this. So we went, and it was cool to see. There was a family who came all the way up from Nebraska, just to do it, so their kid could get in a
Long
boat
drive.
fish. And it was pretty cool to see that. And we're hoping to, I've gotten involved with Wheelchairs and Walleyes now because I can see how passionate Jeff and his wife are about the project. And that's the organizer. And
Yep.
I'm down to help them going forward and trying to grow this thing, get there's some Lake of the Woods and Devil's Lake, I believe, are looking at following suit. So that's kind of cool.
It is. I think Lake Oahe may have. I've seen another one of those somewhere else. I want to say it was up in Lake Oahe somewhere, but it may have not have been a permanent one or just brought in. The thing's massive. I mean, what they had there was huge, and and they had some videos showing it being operated, and it's pretty slick.
It is. It's a nice thing, and they have a Facebook page and stuff. If anybody's interested in going and checking it out and all that, and it's cool because we're all at some point, all of us aren't going to be able to just go step up in our boats anymore, and that's going to make a world of difference and make somebody's life even. So it's pretty fun.
It's a pretty cool thing, and good on you for doing that. And you're exactly right; it can happen just like that. And now you're in need of one of those things, and there isn't one available. So having those around and more accessible and helping raise some money to get those, because it's like I said, it's a big contraption, big unit, and there's no way that's very cheap. And then trying to put those out on a public boat ramp thing and keeping the maintenance up and hoping some punk doesn't vandalize it and tear it up. And then the fact that it's on a reservoir and the water levels may rise, or it's just there's ongoing costs associated with it. And like I said, I'm sure it's not cheap to begin with. So, he's doing some things there with the Dakota Walleye Classic. I saw they had some new sponsors and scholarships they're looking to do next year. I believe he's the mayor of Beloit too. They're going to be doing some raising money for some scholarships for people going in basically in a natural resource type field in that North Dakota area. So a lot of great things happening up there. Tom, was awesome to see you up there. You won that tournament, so congrats on that. I was obviously in the right spot because we were fishing at each other, but I didn't get those bites. But same deal, pre-fishing for a day. Clearly, we found the same fish. I'd actually caught some decent ones there, but bigger than I caught during the tournament the day before. But it was no secret. It's kind of a common spot, as it wasn't crowded, but there was a handful of boats there, I would say.
Yeah, until the wind blew the second day.
Yeah. Saw me beat feet out of there, and I came back at 1 o'clock when it died and got like a 25 and a 22 or something, but I ran out of time at that point. I couldn't. It's the Kraken, right? The Garmin trolling motor you got. That thing is just a beast. I couldn't even keep mine in the water, and my kicker motor was on it. I was like, we're screwed. My batteries are kind of getting shot. Like I said, I haven't got my new North Lithiums, haven't showed up yet. But you put that sucker to the test that day. Wasn't supposed to be windy.
Nope.
But that's
like when we launched that morning, it was slick calm. We're like, this is exactly what they predicted. Nope.
Nope. Then you got the other side of the lake. You're like, not bad. And about 3 hours later, like, this isn't very good. Were you getting them before it blew, or did you get them all kind of after, or just kind of picked them up one throughout the day?
Just throughout. Yeah. Even in that high wind, we were catching some, but I think we only had 6 the first day, 7 the second day, something like that. We didn't catch a lot of fish. I was just trying to sink. So what you said about, in your pre-fish day, found some decent ones, but not in the tournament. I was opposite. Like
you caught them when it mattered. So that's it.
Yeah. So I went out there and I'm like, okay, I told Ryan, I'm like, so I'm just going to fish this. Like we have to win. Like meaning like, I'm not going to cast until I see that mark that's right. And we casted at a lot of marks that were decent size. Getting them to bite, a whole different story.
It was.
They were pretty picky. Everywhere we've gone this year, they've been
picky.
Pretty picky, yes. And even just fun fishing for me this year has been tough. Or I shouldn't say fun fishing, but I'm getting content for university.
You're working, Tom. You're working.
But even that's been tougher to get the fish to bite. And I think it's just we had the early spring, if you want to call it that. The fish are kind of just a little bit off track, and or we're off track,
Right. Well, we thought everything would be early, but ice out was early, but it didn't really get warm. It didn't even break hardly 90s until like summer, until after the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So we've had a long spring and kind of summer, and now the last couple of weeks it's actually gotten pretty cool outside the week in North Dakota, which was not cool at all. But that's fine. I'll take that any day. So they're kind of in a funk. But do you think it's the pressure from all the forward-facing sonar on them?
Mm-mm.
No, just in a funk.
Yeah, because the place I fished at Green Bay, there was no. I mean, it was relatively unpressured before the tournament. Yeah, and then Sakakawea, that area, no.
That's huge.
That's one place out there that is still had yet to see the power forward facing sonar. If you want to go, like there's still a lot of traditional stuff going on out there, maybe until this year. But so Sakakawea, I can't say that had anything to do with it either.
No, I actually have a lot of local friends, and the funny thing going into that was they told me that it doesn't work out there.
I remember you
So
said
the guys that are really good at it were like, it's just not working. It's not working, because they're seeing the same thing we were, where they were being real picky.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is the guy like you who's got so much confidence in it, you're like, they might be picky, but I'm gonna talk this one into giving up eventually. Right? But these guys are gonna go back to their traditional, I'm dropping a crick jub out the back of the boat and I'm gonna rig right through it. And you might very well get it to bite. And so that kind of messes with their mind. And it's different when you're the local. Same thing happened on the Mississippi River. They said fishing's not good. And we get there and we're like, seems pretty good to me, you know, because we're doing different outside the box type stuff than what they're used to. And we don't fish it every day. So we don't know what good, you know, standards really are to them. Because I got Sakakawea, and within the first 5 casts with forward face sonar, I'm like, seems to work fine. Seems to be working just fine. I'm not sure what the problem is. So, but yeah, I think they all have seen their eyes open to that out that way. And you're going to see some more, you know, guys going into it. But it's just, you know, Randy and I talked about it. We're like, we're doing the same thing. We're fishing right next to Tom here. We're fishing next to these people in this tournament. I'm like, how many different ways can you wiggle your worm?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm like, I don't know. We're all, that's what I guarantee I'm using the exact same stuff even, you know, but might have a longer leader, short leader. But I tell them, I said, it's just confidence. I'm like, they can read what you're throwing at better. You know, you're understanding the size of the fish. You're not wasting casts. I'm like, and they just have so much confidence in it. You're just sticking with it.
Yeah. And I keep myself like grounded in the boat, even because Green Bay, pretty much all these places this year, it was a struggle to like Green Bay getting the limit, but struggle to get these bites, and especially with these no call events, getting the right bites and making the right decisions. So what I do is I limit myself in my boat to only just a few different things that I can use in a day. Like, so I don't have all those choices. I don't be like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to go pick up that jig wrap, because I don't even have one. I don't have a Berkeley finisher in the boat because I don't have a Northland puppet minnow. I'm sponsored by Northland, but I don't have. So I keep what I'm confident in, and that's it. 2 or 3 things. Like Ryan Subart that fished that with me, we fished for the first time ever. Like I said, great guy. But when we first met at the house we were staying at, and he's like, hey, can I put some tackle in your boat? I'm like, all right. So he gives me like 4 or 5 boxes of.
Like that's 4 too many. Just bring one of those.
So I put them all in the boat, and I put them in compartments. And then he looks over the side of the boat a little bit later, and he goes, oh, did you put my stuff back in the truck? I'm like, no, it's in the boat. He goes, in your compartments? I said, yeah. And I said, you got more? Because I thought that's what he's asking for. And he goes, well, yeah, if you got room. So he brings like 9 boxes of stuff like that he's traditionally used there.
Right, yep.
All the way in my compartment. And when we start fishing, he's like, where's my stuff? And I'm like, just in those compartments there. And and there was so much extra room still. He's like, where's your stuff? And in the Vexus under the live well,
right here.
It's like in a compartment this big. Yeah. That's all I have.
You're like, here's my jig, and here's my whatever. Right? What more do I need?
I have my thing of plastics. I have my jig box. And that's it. And he's like, that's unbelievable. And he goes, and I've gotten this a few times this year where from co-anglers or whatever, and they're like, you really do just use these things. And I'm like, I tell you guys.
Yeah, I'm not making this up. Keep it simple, stupid is the old KISS acronym, right? And I can't agree more, especially on river systems where we just overthink this because we have options and electronics and all this stuff that makes you overcomplicate something that really isn't very difficult.
Nope.
Especially the forward-facing sonar. It is simple as put a night crawler or a minnow or whatever on a jig and drop it in their face.
And in tournaments too, you throw a whole different mental thing into it, so people spin out a lot and they start tying all this stuff on. Switch colors, switch this, switch that, and all that's time. And for me, it's like if I am confident throughout the year catching a fish, or in pre-fish, even in pre-fish catching, hey, I know they're biting this. Just because 20 fish in a row follow my bait down, look at my bait, don't eat it, it doesn't mean they won't. It doesn't mean one won't. So then I just keep going, go to that next fish, go to the next fish, because someone's going to eat it.
Only need 5 of them to bite, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And more and more people ask me, like, well, how do I do that? I'm like, my mindset going into a tournament is I need 5 bites a day, and I have 1.5 hours per bite. That's what I tell myself. Every single tournament, I need 1.5 hours per bite. So like day 2 of Sakakawea NWT, actually, I went out there and caught my biggest fish within 5 minutes. So I told my co-angler, now instead of an hour and a half, I have in 2 hours,
2 hours, yeah.
2 hours and 50 minutes to catch my second fish. So that's how my mind works as far as that goes when you're looking for in those tournaments where you need all 5 big fish.
And that keeps you from spinning out because you're like, it's only been 30 minutes, man. I'm not even near my 2 hour and 50-minute window yet. You know, ask me in 3 hours how I feel, but until then, I'm just going to keep my head down and keep going. And that's kind of how those fish were. I mean, you would have to throw it 40 of them, follow it down to finally get one of them to take it. And I had days where, and it kind of, you know, is forward facing sonar spooking them out there. I would say definitely not, because you would see some fly from 40 feet away. The water was pretty clean, but I'm like, oh, he's coming in hot, and then he wouldn't take it. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You flew in that far, or you flew off the bottom. And he didn't eat it. Then he'd have one that, I caught a lot suspended, letting it drop, and then holding it there and wiggling it or doing whatever and getting them to go. But then some, if they're going down, I was like, let them go. Just let them chase it to the bottom and then just sit it. You know, and he's like, I'm like, yeah, I'd let it sit there for maybe 30 seconds even. And all of a sudden,
as long as that fish is down there looking at it.
Yeah, if you're still looking at it, I'm like, don't even move it. Don't move it. And then eventually you'd feel a little tapping, wham, and those are usually the pretty good ones. So I'm like, but it was different every day. You know, some days they'd stay up there and hit it on the way down, or catch it 10 feet off bottom. And some were like one day I was like, every one of those came off the bottom. You know, or followed it down and then picked it up, but they wouldn't touch it if it wasn't on the bottom. I'm like, all right, but we can watch them and learn from them, and that's the trick, right? So we're getting into the whole forward facing sonar stuff. So let's talk about that. So what Tom's got going on is Tôm Huynh University. Tell everybody about this and how they can get it, where it's at, what are we going to see, what's associated with it. That's what we're bringing this podcast to you for, folks. So you can understand this. We can get inside of Tom's massive class brain in here, and we can, sound like he's really broken this stuff down for us on these videos, telling us what he sees and how. And I don't know, I'm signing up. I can tell you that, because I would say, how many ways can you wiggle a worm? But obviously you're seeing something different, doing something different. But I mean, you just gave the viewers a whole bunch of points there, and it's really just keeping it simple, not overthinking things. But Tôm Huynh University, what is it? What are we looking at? What are we getting?
Yeah, so I mean, the idea came about a little over 2 years ago when, just talking to people, a couple people, Nate and I, my tournament partner Nate Wolski and I met, and we. They're eager to learn forward facing sonar, and they're like, you know what, you should think about teaching this. And I'm like, on the water stuff or what? And they're like, well, maybe. But then we started thinking about it and started looking at what's out there for fishing education. And the primary avenue for learning techniques and stuff to fish is YouTube. But with YouTube, there's no organization. You can go search something. You're going to find there's good information on YouTube, but you have to sort through so much stuff. If you find the right video, let's just say it's a 8-minute video, you might find 15 seconds worth of stuff that you have to filter all the way through. And if you fast forward through the wrong thing, you skipped it. So then we're thinking like, okay, how do we teach people, keep their attention, and actually make them learn? And so we borrowed some ideas from actual, continuing education from very high profile schools, very high profile schools,
Yep.
and looked at that and was like, you know what? We can do something like that for the fishing community and organize it so it's curriculum based. Like the way that schools, the way teaching is organized to effectively educate people so that they can retain it. So we took that idea, put all of my fishing knowledge with forward facing sonar and like tournament thinking, like uh, just everything with the electronics, putting it into this so that people can have it at their fingertips. Like they can, if they have an issue with if they think they have an issue with their ghost tree, for example, they can open this up, they can log in, they can go down the side, and there's 8 different modules that they can choose from, and then there's a drop down, and then each drop down has subcategories, and they find ghost tree, and they can go in there and click that. It's just right there. Ghost tree explained. Should you hide it? Should you leave it? Does it matter that it's there? I explain all of that. That's just an example. So it goes, and when I started putting this, this content together too, there was a lot I left out because to me, a lot of the stuff was trivial, meaning like there's a lot of the stuff that I learned in the beginning that to me now is like duh type stuff. Like, but I was reminded by the people helping me do this.
It may
They're
be
like,
duh to you now, but not duh to you when you started.
100%.
Right.
So I went back and did all of the basics and stuff like that and just went through. And then it taught me a lot too doing this. I'm like, you know what? There's a lot that I did do and didn't realize it back then. And so it's just basically, it's not, I mean, yes, if you're a tournament angler, it's going to benefit you. But the people it's going to benefit, the people that's going to reach the most and help the most is the everyday angler that wants to go out there and take their family and enjoy fishing, that the kids catch some fish for once. And, but there's sections in there with tournament mentality, whether it's a team mentality with me and Nate or the NWT mentality, like it covers everything, not just forward facing sonar, and extremely detailed. It's not screenshots of forward facing sonar screens, because to me, like in my seminars this last winter, I did a lot of seminars and I didn't use any auto visual aids at all because I didn't have the confidence in showing still shots of my screens, because still shot of forward facing sonar is not accurate. It's misleading because when you're looking at that screen, it's not a still shot. It's moving constantly. So
Right. It's live. That's the whole point. It's live.
exactly.
Right.
So I was able to figure out how to get screen recordings. And so people know I'm not just like taking a camera and recording, or a phone and recording my screen with my camera. I'm taking high definition recordings from within the unit, so that whenever you're watching these clips, and there's over 150 clips of information, most of them are live scope recordings that are going to take up your whole phone screen or your whole computer screen or your home TV screen.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna blow that stuff up, man. Make it big.
Full screen in high definition of my screen recording, and in a lot of the YouTube stuff, you see the screen, but it's just silence. You see the screen and maybe some text or caption explaining. But I decided, I'm going to take it a step farther. So it was quite a bit of work, but I inset myself into each one of these screens, explaining what's happening in the screen as you're watching it. So it could be, fishing walleyes and weeds, or some of the coolest stuff is, in a lot of the areas we fish, is showing people, okay, here's what a walleye looks like on Garmin Live Scope. Here's what a sucker looks like, and this is why. So then I can show people all the different species, which I've done in this, and show things that could really help make people more efficient on the water. As far as, oh, panning around, oh, that's a drum, I'm not going to cast at that. Or that walleye is only 10 inches long, I'm not casting. So I'm showing people how to decipher what they're looking at underwater, even though they've already seen it. They've seen it, but haven't realized it. And one of the most important things is, and I bet you think about this too, like after a long winter, for example, the ice comes off the lakes and stuff, and we're like, open water season. We get out there on the boat, we're looking at our live scope, and we kind of forget what, and what am I
Yep.
looking at again? What am I looking for again? Like, we have an idea, obviously, but then we have to retrain our eyes. And this is like literally in the palm of people's hands, where they can look at it anytime. In the dead of winter, they can look at this on the water, open water footage to keep their minds and eyes refreshed, so that when they do step foot in their boat in the spring, they're just ready to go. And I also teach on there how to do your own screen recordings, because I think that's important, because I'm going to challenge people to do their own screen recordings, because if they go out there and they're not sure what they're looking at, they can take their screen recording on their phone, take it home, match it up with what I did, and be like, oh, that's what that fish is. Or, you know what I mean? So there's a lot to this that the fishing industry hasn't seen. I'm excited about it because it's different. I'm nervous about it because it's new, but it's something I think that is going to help hopefully propel the walleye industry and help every single manufacturer out there, my sponsors or not my sponsors. I believe that the bass industry obviously is giant. Bassmaster is doing everything right. And a lot of that has to do because they're not hiding anything. They have Bassmaster Elite Live. You can watch what these guys are using in the boat at the time. So there's no secrets. And I think in our industry, I haven't been in it that long, but what I've noticed is there's just a lot of secrets, a lot of misleading information, if you will. And so it's not, it's telling these followers, like the everyday anglers, to go to the store and buy this when X angler said to use it, but they really didn't use it in the tournament, for example. So they go spend the money on that, but they get discouraged because they're not catching fish on it or not being taught how to use it.
Yep.
So the industry isn't growing. And so if this can be a start to teaching people how to find fish, and I'm not talking just trophy fish, just walleyes in general, going out, finding walleyes, or if your target species is bass, go catch bass, but how to use the electronics efficiently and responsibly and go have fun. And I think, we could see the walleye industry probably will never catch bass, but I think it'll maybe actually start to grow for once, and that's my goal and my challenge. Well, I don't know why it became my goal and challenge, but I've always been like that in my life. If I start something, I'm just going to take it on. So
Nope, it's good. I'm the same way, and you're all in on it.
Yep.
However it turns out, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be successful. I'm pretty sure it's going to work, and I'm pretty sure everybody here is already trying to figure out how to log on and subscribe, and how do I get to this? So where do they find it at, and what's it? What do we do? We download and we pay an annual subscription. What comes?
Yep.
What's the package?
So it's web-based. So that's a different deal too. Right now you see a lot of YouTube stuff. You see some app-based things, but really when it comes right down to it, the most efficient way and the best way to learn something in a curriculum, it's web-based. So it's going to be fishthu.com, and so it's going to be accessible, obviously phone, computer, TV if you have the capability, but fishthu.com, it's a annual subscription, and the annual subscription price is just going to be
$279
a year. And I've, went back and forth with, getting some people's opinions on that. And a lot of people that I've showed some clips and stuff to, they're like, so you have 150 some of these showing this kind of stuff. And they're like, that's it. But I'm
It's a
like,
small price to pay, trust me.
that's the thing. And for me, it's like, I want to, again, I just kind of want to try to make a difference. I want to get it. Just think if all of us on the NWT, just for example, we're kind of just on the same page, competing like it was
Yeah.
8 years ago, 10 years
Yep.
ago, and how we could advance the technology, even though people are crying about the technology now. They're, oh, it's too much, it's this and that, the other, whatever. But it's not going to change. That's never going to stop. But again, we're in the walleye industry, and if we can help boost that, it's good for all of us. And why not be a part of it now? And we can all benefit from learning and then in turn teaching. So that $269 a year is going to give you access to the whole entire university for the first year. Call it the freshman year, if you will. I don't know, but I don't.
Rookie season. Get the rookie season package. There you go.
And there's going to be a lot of very in-depth information, and there's going to be some information that's so simple in there that I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. But it's a lot of in-depth stuff that I've been compiling in my head and digitally for almost 4 years, and I'm happy to share it. And when people say, "Are you nervous?" People are going to catch up to you, and on the NWT and this and that, and I'm like, I'm fine with that. I am 100% fine with that, because I want to compete extremely bad, and I will find a way to stay on the top. Like, so if people push me, I'm going to push myself harder.
Yeah. Competition just makes you better.
Exactly, 100%.
Right. And so some of us that we're on the handicap of it, basically. Tom's lending us a little olive branch here to help get you caught up so we can push him. So that's fair. I appreciate that a lot, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, but you're right. A rising tide, moves all ships, right? And you're on the cutting edge. You're on the front end of this thing. It's our job as professional anglers, especially in the walleye world, to grow the sport. I mean, we all come at it from all different directions, and I'm just guilty as anybody of pushing things down and being negative about stuff. But when it's all said and done, it's trying to get the word out and the message out to make things better.
Yep.
And this is obviously just one small facet of it, really. And price wise, it's a small price to pay. It's very fair, and that's great to be at that, to making it affordable for the the guy. If you're going to invest $3,000 or $4,000 into the equipment, what's a couple $100 to learn how to use it's pretty smart. I mean, I got plenty of guys, and I think Heiser does a lot of on the water stuff with his Lowrance active target. And I've had them, as a guide, and others where people have dropped in my boat and I've ran them through their hummingbirds and on their side image. And it's just kind of like a guide trip, but you can do it from the comfort of your own couch.
100%. And that's why we started kind of referring to it as a virtual guide boat, because what I've learned by having my co-anglers in the boat and family, my brother this year, I honestly, I don't get a ton of time to fish outside of tournaments, and when I'm out there getting his content, I'm out there a lot by myself. But it's not like, okay, I don't get up in the morning and say, oh, I'm going to go get content of walleyes and weeds today. No, it might take me 2 weeks or more, because I can't just go say, hey, they're going to be walleye and weeds today, and I'm going to find them.
Hey, they are, but I may have went to the wrong lake or the wrong day or the wrong time or whatever.
And to record them, what I mean? To record them and stay with them. Follow me on that Kraken, follow them through the weeds to show people this is how a walleye goes through the weeds, how they traverse the weeds, why they're in here. So, like, it was a lot of time, but I learned so much, and in turn give back. But the virtual guide boat thing makes sense, because a lot of the people that I explain stuff to, buddies that are on the AIM circuit, for example, who I just get on the phone and I say, here's what you're looking for, here's what you do, and they go do it without even being in my boat. So then I started learning, like, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself and some people to prove that what I can show them without being in the boat actually works. So this last week, I did a couple days on Lake of the Woods, and the challenge for the two groups of people I was with was okay, here's my screen, here's some recordings, jump in the boat. I'm going to show you what things look like for about 2 or 3 hours. Now I just want you to go do it. And it showed me, it proved to me that I can teach this 100% effectively virtually. And it's almost like you're in there watching that screen, because it's kind of cool.
So that's funny you did that this week, and I had kind of the same. So I had a 2-day guide trip, same group, one day with one of my guides, and they trolled all day. That was the bite. Well, they were University of Nebraska Bass Club guys.
Okay.
So you can imagine how fun trolling was for them all day long. And they caught some big fish, and it was different for them. So they were like, and their mom, it was two buddies, and their mom came with them and bought this little before back to school thing, sophomores. So I said, I'll take them the next day. And I'm like, all right, we can do this. And then I mentioned live scope, and the kid's eyes kind of lit up. I'm like, yeah, right on. I would love to go do that all day and not troll. So I took him to his first spot, drove around, I'm like, whatever. The fish beer, they're not here today. So we're going to go over here, and it's out of the wind. So that's a bonus. So we hit a rock pile, and I'm up on it, driving around. And finally, I'm like, come up here and look, and showed him. And then take 10, 15 minutes. And the other kid was up there, and I showed him how to run the foot pedal. Had the screen kind of dialed in, was showing him what he's looking. There's just a bunch of fish. There was drum, white bass, perch, pike. There was just a fish everywhere. They could care less what they were catching. And within 30 minutes, I was sitting back with their mom, just hanging out, talking, and the guys were driving the boat all around this section, chasing fish, and once he finally just kind of held his jig and crawler in the water while he was driving, and boom, catches like a 30-inch pike. I'm like, it's up. And he's like, and then I catch one just throwing out the back. He's like, man, did it without live scope even. I'm like, yeah. You're catching 5 to my 1 up there. So, I'm just hanging out with your mom back here. And these boys, then we moved to a different spot. I'm like, let's go they were catching little perch. I'm like, some bigger fish? Yeah. So we went over and we were catching like 3 to 5 pound catfish, some big drum. I'm like, there's a ton of cat. I said, there's walleye in there. I said, but when there's that many, I'm like, those are mainly catfish and drum around a stump. Well, they were good sized ones, and they were bending those medium light. I mean, the kids were having a ball, and they were like, yeah, we'll keep some of these. And I'm like, okay, now further out, if you make a cast, I said, those are walleyes. I'm going to guess those are walleyes because they're by themselves and they're away from this crowd. And I pitch out and I catch an 18-inch walleye. So the kid's like, all right. So then I went back out with their mom, and they continued to fish. And he didn't get any walleye, but they got a lot of drum, a lot of catfish. And about till 2 o'clock, and they're like, I'm like, troll bite's going really good here. If you want to kick up some walleye for the free. He's like, yeah, this is exhausting. Let's take a break. But for the whole day, I pretty well sat in the back, and they just showed them what it was, showed them kind of what they're looking at. Not near as good as you did by all means, but the bigger part was showing them the boat control. Exactly. How to get on the foot pedal and how not, and how to just float and drift. And that's a huge part. Because he was kind of gunning too fast. So I'm like, no, I said, just punch it and stop. And just kind of coast, and then, and then take your pan and then kind of get on it, and then just kind of do it in spurts a little bit with the old tricks. I don't have the Kraken, and we were, the weather was it was fairly calm, so it was semi easy. But I think it took him a couple hours, and he realized that. He's like, yeah, that's a real big deal.
Yep, and boat control is huge. Without boat control, it's hard to fully utilize forward-facing sonar, and that's another part of one of the main topics of this is showing different variations of boat control and how I tackle whether it's super windy like we had to deal with. And I was able to get some really cool bird's eye footage of a really windy day, and actually from above, and show how I'm maneuvering the boat when I find a target, what I do with the trolling motor, what I do with the boat, just to give people a perspective, because there's questions I get every day, and and we talk about, like, people ask me all the time, which I'm still open to in the future when I have time. People ask me if I can do on the water training with them. They pay me whatever, but I just don't have the time. And the thing is, when I tried to start thinking about this, is like, if I take somebody out on the training on the water, there's nothing like hands-on, but at the same time, you're on the water with me maybe 6 hours, maybe 8 hours a day. But what you saw, you better remember it because,
Yeah, that's it.
but now what I'm doing with all this content, it's right there. You have it all the time. You know what I mean? Like you have that content to look at all the time. And I think that's important as far as learning and retaining.
Yeah, very, very true. And I can guarantee they're going to be in their boat, busting out their cell phone, going, "What the heck was that again?" And
Good.
that's what it's designed for. It's perfect.
Yep.
So, like you
Yep.
said, it's a virtual guided tour, and
Mm-hmm.
$270 we'll call it is a small price to pay for, like you said, 4 or 5 years of content and years of wisdom. And I mean, granted, this thing technology hasn't been around a long time, but it's not going in, it's not going away anytime soon. And if you're going to invest all that money into these $100,000 boats and thousands of dollars in electronics, what's a tank of gas in your boat, really, right?
Yeah,
To learn
true.
how to
That's true.
maximize this stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's the world we live in, folks. But
Mhm.
awesome, super looking forward to this. This is awesome stuff, Tom. This is breaking edge. People, we're going to put the links below, fishthu.com. Sign in to Tom Huynh University or fishtomwin.com and just take that master class on forward-facing sonar. And it's not just, you can use this for the hummingbirds, the Lowrances, and the Garmins, really, a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of it.
Yep. Because I'm not using, this first year, I decided to, do this on my own, meaning no sponsorships behind it because I don't, I've never been about that anyway. Like there's been people who commented, not about the university, but just in general when they ask me my opinions on certain baits or tackle. And there's people who say, "Oh, you say that because it's on your boat or your jersey." And I'm in a unique position where like I used every single thing on my jersey before these companies reach out to me because I was on the front edge of forward facing sonar. I was onto something. So I'm very fortunate that way where I've used like Garmin, for example, I've used Garmin since I started LiveScope in 2019, but I wasn't on Garmin's Pro Team till this year. So people don't realize that, but I had an opportunity with a different brand and back when I was still paying for all of my electronics, but I refused it because I was just, again, going back to confidence. I was
Yep.
confident in my Garmin's and what they were providing me with what I could see. So I instead of taking that deal, I stayed paying for my Garmin's for a few years. But that's the thing. I don't want people to think just because I'm using Garmin, it can't be translated over to Lowrance and Humminbird because now each brand has their strengths and weakness. But I've been fortunate. I've been very, very fortunate to jump in boats, whether I'm on TV shows or whatever, that have all of these electronics. And in every one of these episodes and stuff, we're able to catch fish, right? So I do go in this too and explain to people the differences in these brands so that they can make their own decision. So if I'm able to show somebody, just for an example, if I'm able to show a Lowrance user, okay, here's how I dictate size, here's how I dictate species, maybe they have their way of doing it, but if not, hey, maybe they need to switch, or you know what I mean? So I'm not there to try to persuade anybody to go here, go there. As a professional tournament angler, I'm sponsored by Garmin,
Well,
right?
I'll do it for you, Tom. I've had the bird and I have a Garmin on my forward-facing sonar now for a reason. So I love my birds. They have their place. But when it comes to this, I put a Garmin in there and it went, whoa, this is a
Yep.
whole different world. No wonder these guys are cleaning house on it. I mean, there's still a lot more to it, obviously, but I've seen the Lowrances and good, and I think Bird's got a new one, coming out here shortly. They're not going to argue with you. They're going to say, yeah, we got to catch up, but everybody's got their own little thing. But when it comes to ice, I love my Bird from ice fishing.
Mm-hmm.
It excels straight, straight down and not moving much. But as far as boat control and a lot of what your certain techniques, it probably, like I said, it doesn't matter. You can translate 80% of this to any brand probably.
You can. And just so people know, like how in depth I get in this, like, you mentioned hummingbird and how it's good on ice, right? And when it's still, and that's because with the processing speed slower. So
Yep.
when it's still, it can process the targets coming in as they're coming in slowly. When you're on open water, the boat's moving, the trolling motor's moving, the fish are moving, everything's moving. So hummingbird, they'll get there. There's no doubt in my mind. But they're utilizing the processing within their unit to look at their targets, whereas Garmin and Lowrance are using their external black boxes to do all the computing, so that everything's more faster and rapid. So that's we get into that a little bit in the university just to kind of give people a explanation on these technologies and what they can expect, when they go shopping for one or the other. So
right, and it's a due diligence world now, because everybody's going to do all the research they can before they purchase, because we can do that now. We don't just go buy it like we did 15 years ago and go, hope it works, plug it in, go, and then get all pissed off because it doesn't work, and they realize, oh, you don't have it hooked up right, or whatever. And there's 20 phone calls back to the store, and next thing the guy's going to come out and look at your boat and be like, here, plug that in. And it's crystal clear. So once again, awesome stuff. I had something to say. I can't remember what the heck it was now, but who knows? You keep blowing my mind with this stuff. So I can't wait for it, to dive in and watch this stuff. You're right. That's the best way to learn, especially in today's world, is, the video, right? And tutorial, and you overlaying your commentary with it is huge, and it hasn't really been done. And we need all the advantages and the progress to move things forward in the walleye world as we can, because we're leaps and bounds behind bass. We'll never probably be there because we're a smaller market, but we're still a big market.
Yep.
I think when it comes to tackle, walleye guys have a hell of a lot more gear in their boat, except you maybe, than most of these bass guys. So, I mean, we buy. We're with trolling and crankbait junkies, and I mean all these other techniques, they still work. They still put fish in the boat. It's just, how do you want to fish? And if you're competing at a top level tournament circuit, you better embrace it and figure it out. I mean, I've been saying it for a year and a half, and I embraced it this year and had my worst year on tour. But it's not because of embracing that; it's for several other factors, I would imagine. But it's confidence in it, and just straight up leaving the other stuff out of the boat, doing just keeping your head down and getting more confident in it, and just doing it time over time. And I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours this year with my face in that screen dialing in, but there's still so much. I'm like, size, I haven't got that figured out. I broke my screen, I put the graphs on it.
The grids.
So the grid, somebody's like, okay, well, that's a 4-foot grid. So that's got to be, that's a 2-foot fish at least, right? 24 incher. Of course, Scott Quee, I'm like, that's a big fish. And every time I said that, it was a 40+ inch northern, but I was right. It was a big fish.
Big fish.
Yep. I'm like, that's a big one. Pulled it up, smack. Oh yeah. I'm like, that's too big a fish.
Yep. And on this too, I show you on there, like, how to know it's a northern.
Yeah. They stick out. They show up real well, when they turn just right. So anyway, we'll wrap this up, folks. That is awesome, Tom. Like I said, I can't wait to dive into this thing. People go to fishthu.com. I'll put the links below. If you got questions, I'm sure once this all launches and you get in on it and start participating in your rookie season of Tôm Huynh University, I'm sure you're going to continue to upload more stuff and new stuff, and they can follow you along on Tôm Huynh Fishing over on your Facebook and your social media pages. You got some teasers out there now. It's just awesome. I'm awesome. I'm excited for you. Pumped. This is going to be huge. It's got to be huge, as one guy says. It'll be the biggest, the greatest thing ever, right? It's going to be huge. I'm telling you, this is going to be huge. So maybe you should release it like November 7th, whatever election day is, because it's going to be huge. So this thing it's going to be huge. So I'm pumped. I can't wait to donate some money to you, and outside of a tournament, and get a little educated myself on this. And I'm going to tell the world about it as well and share it, so we can help grow the sport and get more guys and gals and kids and youth on the water. I believe angling numbers went up 4 or 5 million this year, so that's good. But that's a trend that needs to continue to go up. And the women have gone up a lot. I think Hispanics have gone up. A lot of the minority groups have raised quite a bit this year. A lot of that's due to ASA's work. I can't even remember some of them right now, but there's just a lot of great organizations doing good stuff to get them out. But this is a huge step in the walleye world. So absolutely awesome. I think that's it. You got to leave anything with the listeners?
No,
You dropped a lot. You dropped a lot of nuggets. I think that's right. We got to leave a little bit to be, you got to subscribe to get more. So there's a lot more, and head over to fishthu.com and get all the inside scoop from Tom. And trust me, I think you're going to be happy with the product. So, all right, Tom, thanks for joining us and sharing this. We're stoked. Can't wait. And all you listeners, thanks for tuning in. Head over and subscribe to Tom's masterclass on forward-facing sonar, and stay safe, and we'll see you on the water. Hey guys, if you're tuning in, head over to the Walleye Guys YouTube page, and there you can catch a lot more podcasts and some Tackle Tip Tuesdays. It's going to help you on your angling adventures.